Yo, bro, it's OHM. Has meaning. What you call it? We back again. I'm about to read today. I'm about to read a book as opposed to some notes. I told Instagram that I was gonna read from Dark Light Consciousness, but that introduction is really long. That would be like 20 minutes. I ain't doing all that today. So today we're gonna read something from The Road from Orion. You know what I'm saying, by Judy K. King, and I think it's kind of lit. Um, it's certain parts of this book that like throw me off. Like she uses the term space physics instead of astrophysics, and she says that Egyptians use symbols to hide cer- certain concepts, but like a symbol doesn't hide something. Like a symbol explains a concept because a concept is non-physical. You need a symbol to explain a non-physical concept. Like that's what they're for. So whatever. But yeah, Road from Orion. So it says The Road from Orion, a surreal story supporting the ISIS thesis by Judy K. King, author of the ISIS thesis. And the back cover reads fiction slash literature. The Road from Orion is a story based on fictional characters, facts, great works of art, and an authentic study decoding 870 ancient Egyptian signs. The story begins in 1983 when Dr. Lucia Lucia Farrell takes a leave of absence from the University of Arizona to conduct a biotechnology experiment that will support her thesis on the hidden meaning of ancient Egyptian signs. Her research decodes the chemical path used by the pharaohs to clone the dead king into a unique species, what theologians refer to as the diamond body, the resurrected light body, or the ultra human. Believing she could perform this same genetic experiment on a living human being, Lucia enlists the talents of two undergraduate students. If they can prove the hidden Egyptian wisdom is threaded through the works culture has cherished as great art, then Lucia's thesis will have support from history's greatest minds. Her biotechnology experiment will provide the practical evidence that is, if the students can survive the cloning. Curious about the effects of mind-expanding drugs, the students agreed to ingest an alchemical white powder secreted from the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid. Questing to discover the pharaoh's lost knowledge, they also experienced the primal meaning of the work of art. Gaze deep into the creative minds of the pharaohs. The poets Rilke, Coleridge, Roth, I don't know, the madman Artaud, Nerval, Holderlin, Poe, Desaad, the artists O'Keeffe, Goya, Bosc, Bosch, Dürer, Watts, Van Gogh, the writers Shakespeare, Dante, Conrad, Cervantes, Goethe, Kafka, the philosophers Heidegger, Plato, Nietzsche, Foucault, Sartre, Descartes, the musicians Mahler, the band Kiss, Rachmaninoff, Sublime, Paganini, Miles Davis. Caught in a surreal web of biotechnology, dream, madness, knowledge, and creativity, the heroes experience the power of the white powder and decode the secrets locked in the ISIS thesis. Mm-hmm. This work in the ISIS thesis is a result of 3 years of independent research by retired college professor Judy K. King, M.A., I think it's master's or something, whose graduate education was rooted in the literary theories of Derrida, Derrida, Foucault, Levi Strauss, Heidegger, and many others interested in the study of signs and the origin of the work of art. This that inner drawing. Also by Judy K. King, The Isis Thesis, a study decoding 870 Egyptian signs, 2004, and Balls of Fire, a science of life and death, 2015. Got that too. As well. Peer review articles. Judy K. King, 2019, A Trace of Emergence, Human Social Behavior as a Sign of Microbial Metabolism, the International Journal of Interdisciplinary Cultural Studies. 2014, Death or the Powers, The Future of the Human Experience, in International Journal of Humanities and Education, 11. 2011, Unraveling Mountain Way Ceremonials, Is Navajo Eschatological Ritual Another Semiotic Pattern of Ancient Invisible Magic Veiling a Complex Information System? The International Journal of the Humanities, Annual Review, number 8. 2019, Cosmological Patterns in Ancient Egypt and China, The Way to Unify the Universe Through Knowledge, Mind, Energy, and the Beneficence of the Elements, The International Journal of the Humanities, Annual Review, number 7. 2008, cosmic semiophysics and ancient architectural vision, the mountain temples at Deir al-Bahari, the Dead Sea Temple Scroll, and the Hagia Sophia, the International Journal of the Humanities Annual Review number 6. In 2007, from History's Dustbin, a semiotics of evolvability discovered within man and his mountain of transformation, the International Journal of Humanities Annual Review number 5. 2007, Man, the Misinterpretant. Will he discover the universal secret of sexuality encoded within him? The International Journal of Humanities Annual Review number 4. 2006, Biosemiotics in Ancient Egyptian Texts, the key to long-lost science found in myth, religion, psychology, art, and literature. For more information, see http cgscholar.com/community/profile/Judy King/publications, cgscholar.com/community/profile/Judy King. Also see Proceedings of Semiotic Society of America for 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, and 2011 for 4 published articles presented at annual meetings. The Road from Orion, a surreal story supporting the ISIS thesis, Judy K. King, Envision Editions, Limited. Cover design is by Shannon M. King using NASA image PR93-01 dated January 1st, 1993 of the Cygnus Loop supernova blast wave and E.A. Wallace Budge's representation of the creation from the sarcophagus of Seti I, Envision Editions Limited. And that's this. So that's a supernova, bam, and that is a drawing tracing made by E.A. Wallace Budge of a creation account depicted on a sarcophagi of a dead person named Seti I. That is a crazy picture of Thoth in here. It's crazy. Can you say that? Yeah. And copyright, and that picture is copyright 2003 by Eric Zimansky. It says, "In the beginning was the word. Already I am stopped. It seems absurd. I must translate it otherwise, if I am well inspired and not blind. It says, in the beginning was the mind. Ponder that first line. Wait and see, lest you should write too hastily. Is mind the all-creating source? I ought to say, in the beginning there was force. Yet something warns me as I grasp the pen, that my translation must be changed again. The spirit helps me. Now it is exact. I write, in the beginning was the act." Had to flow it because I be rapping. That's Goeth's Faust. So yeah, it's Goeth. Goeth is who wrote Faust. Faustian Gambit, etc., deals with the devil, etc., Guy Faust, etc. But Guy Faust is like inspired. That's not the same thing. But yeah, this is the table of contents, baby. Our book from the Nation of Islam, the table of contents looks like this. So listen, remember that when I read what I'm about to read. I'm gonna do the preface, so we gonna cut it because we getting on. Preface. The corpus of Egyptian funerary texts demonstrate an advanced 21st century knowledge of space physics, quantum physics, molecular biology, supramolecular chemistry, and bacterial genetics. Using this expansive knowledge base, the ancient Egyptians carved a sophisticated symbolic system of art and hieroglyphics into the tombs of the pharaohs and nobility to disguise their science. Again, I hate that they use the word disguise, because that's not what symbols do. The ISIS Thesis, Volume 1, posits that the primary objective of their hidden scientific knowledge was to map the chemical path by which the genetic heritage of the deceased was preserved and vectored into a bioluminescent species that was not recycled back to Earth and the world of photosynthesis. Decoding an elaborate work of over 870 signs in 8 different texts spanning 2,000 years, the thesis explains how the pharaoh's science of death made humans into gods by cloning a new species. With this knowledge, the pharaohs insist humanity can reinvent itself at death. For humans today, this knowledge may be an alternative to species suicide due to overpopulation, nuclear war, global warming, and mass extinction. The story, a surreal plot of works of art, fact, and fiction. To convey this scientific knowledge to readers and students that are not scientists or Egyptology scholars, The Road from Orion, Volume 2, is a story supporting and relating to the study based on a surreal plot of fictional characters, historical facts, and great works of art. Using the Egyptian method of providing drawings to aid understanding, the table of contents for the story is modeled on the Egyptian Senet game and depicts 30 chapter drawings related to events in the story. Within the text of history, direct quotations of creative artists from renowned works of literature, art, music, and philosophy are designated by italics, with the work itself referenced in a short bibliography at the conclusion. These great works of art point to scientific concepts referenced in the thesis and support the interpretation, but not valid scientific evidence. Other themes woven within the story's plot reveal several controversial questions. Is schizophrenia a direct mental experience of the quantum world of atoms? Do hallucinogens allow humans to access the quantum world? Do each of us have an invisible double? Did royal incest enhance the pharaoh's spiritual consciousness? Has our idea of God prevented us from accessing comprehensive wisdom? The thesis, a study of Egyptian ideas and science. The ISIS thesis begins with an abstract of the study as an advanced organizer. After this, we begin our quest to restore the effaced Egyptian sign so that the pharaoh's lost knowledge is restored to history. Part 1 of the thesis reviews methods, sources, and major ideas of the pyramid text and the coffin text. Analyzing textual evidence, we map the pharaoh's path to eternity, discovering space physics evidence for actual energy landscapes that match Egyptian descriptions. Part 2 examines the quantum world of the cell, for the Egyptian signs are dual signified. We discover that the macroscopic Earth system operates like a tiny bacterium. As the legendary alchemist Hermes Trismegistus said, "What is below is like that which is above." Part 3 deconstructs the Amduat, a book often called the Egyptian Heaven and Hell, describing a journey through a black hole protein funnel. Next, we analyze the Book of Gates, another Middle Kingdom text found in the great tombs of the pharaohs. Briefly, we peer into the Book of Caverns. In Part 4, we explore the mystifying Book of Two Ways that still intrigues religious scholars, the New Kingdom Edifice of Taharqa, and the popular New Kingdom Book of the Dead, including the Theban Recension. As a corpus, these texts are unified in their presentation of Egyptian science that centers around predicted chemical events and the afterlife of the deceased. We close our investigations in Part 5 with an evaluation of the Egyptian legacy and its links to string theory, black hole theory, inflationary cosmology, and world religious perspectives. Covering 8 funerary texts within one book was a massive task that presented several difficulties. The first problem was how to address the large range of interconnected and dual signified signs that have confused scholars for centuries. In an attempt to understand these signs with no intrusions, I became a full-time independent researcher for 3 years, leaving my college teaching and grant writing career in 2001. This allowed me the opportunity to carefully decode the meanings of the signs and catalog them in matrices with modern science parallels. The second problem was the depth of cutting-edge scientific knowledge embedded in the Egyptian texts. Fortunately, non-stop satellite internet access allowed research opportunities any time of the day or night. Also, excellent online university tutorials and courses in biology, chemistry, physics, and genetics deepened my knowledge. Thanks to the efforts of the Otsego County Library and their interlibrary loans, I was able to obtain unusual texts, such as The Edifice of Taharqa by Richard A. Parker, John LeClante, and Jean-Claude Guyon. Other texts, such as Alexander Piankov's impressive portfolio of plates photographed from the tomb of Ramses VI, were invaluable. The third problem centered on the complexity of the funerary text, which required numerous reviews of each text. To resolve the complexity issue and aid research and understanding, I compared the Old Kingdom pyramid text and Middle Kingdom coffin text, listing the major Egyptian themes or idea strands in an appendix for the reader. This should also be helpful to critics who have not read the funerary text. However, an ideal critique of the ISIS thesis rests on the critic having read all the funerary texts addressed. Constructive criticism can only result when Egyptologists, scientists, and professionals in related disciplines work together to expand or modify the ideas within this work. Although the thesis addresses more than one scientific discipline, students of general level science, teachers, and professionals should find it interesting. I have provided diagrams and matrices, along with definitions of scientific terms within the text, online researches and the references denoted by an asterisk, and a glossary of Egyptian deities and terms to aid understanding. The argument addresses 10 objectives in Part 1 through Part 4 that guide the reader to conclusions and possibilities in Part 5. Some of the issues noted in the thesis are more controversial than those of the story. Was the birth of science in Egypt? Can human consciousness exist after death? Can we take control of our afterlife? Is God and quantum life form modeling complex viral behavior? Although the textual references in sign taken individually may be vague, the 870 coded signs as a whole exhibit a unified matrix of Egyptian science that mirrors and surpasses the knowledge of modern scientists. Is the scientific afterlife knowledge of the pharaohs useful to living human beings? That is for you to decide. I began this exploration of the Egyptian afterlife because I believed that the ancient pharaohs possessed knowledge that would shed light on life and death, thereby eliminating the fear of the unknown for humans. My work rewarded me with the knowledge of why the ancient kings did not fear death, while they looked upon the world with a cool equanimity that was omniscient and eternal. Although no theory is an absolute theory, this thesis provides a scientific rationale for an afterlife existence that helps one to understand who we are, how our universe works, and what we can become. Alright, so that's the whole preface, but before we cut out, number one says on the first page of the preface that they are using the Egyptian method of providing drawings to aid understanding. Now, if the system of art disguised science, and now that this science was disguised, it was now known as hidden, how? No, that's a cultural projection, because clearly there's an Egyptian system of using art, providing drawings to aid in understanding, There's also a thing referenced in here about, is schizophrenia a direct mental experience of the quantum world of atoms? You gotta look into the Stanford University global schizophrenia study, where they took people from the United States, Ghana, and Chennai, I think, in India, and they basically evaluated people for schizophrenia, like based off like adults between the age of 30 and 40 years old, and then they like dual tested them for various neurological and genetic markers for schizophrenia, and then from that group they evaluated just everybody's life and found that basically the experience of voice hearing and auditory hallucination, like in the brain, where it's like voices in your head that are auditory, that sound like they're auditory, is entirely like framed around local culture, and that the experience of schizophrenia in America, because of the local culture, is generally violent and frightening, or delusions of grandeur and involving celebrity. And the experience of schizophrenia in West Africa is generally very much about God, and there's the voice of God, and there's no other voice, and God is directing you or judging you and informing you. And in India, because they have a belief in nature spirits and local spirits, it's spirits of nature, simply beings indigenous to the spiritual realm, and their main focus is distracting people from the cares of life. They generally talk to people about sex a lot, and also because over there in India they have strong ancestor worship, they also have a lot of ancestral voices, people they've met and haven't met, telling them information to use in their daily lives, and that's also reflected in Africa as well. But yeah, man. So there's that. Stanford University World Schizophrenia Study. What you call it? They said, did royal incest enhance the pharaoh's spiritual consciousness? There's history that talks about that. Once the Greeks, the Ptolemy and all them, and his generations took over Egypt, they were imposing laws that took certain themes from the mythology and imposed them literally in law. In terms of Isis and Osiris being brother and sister, they were like imposing a law, like marriage, like real close marriage between families. African people don't do that. Arabs don't do that. Asians don't do that. Like all the people that claim lineage and descent and control over Egyptian history throughout African people, Middle Eastern people, North African people, we don't do that. Including the white people that's from North Africa, they don't do that. They don't do that. But once people get their tribes annihilated, their tribal lines annihilated, and you take lineage from being matrilineal to patrilineal, then you get situations like that where people are trying to reform bloodlines from cousins because it's the only people left. That's weird, but that puts you in a state of enhancing if you've been degenerated right before that. But nobody should be performing no type of incest. That's consanguinity is dangerous and frowned upon. She also states to remember that all the signs are interconnected and dual signified, more than dual meanings, but it compounds upon itself. And what you call it? Talk about quantum this, quantum that. Gotta remember, Max Planck in his study of cavity radiation, he wanted to know why do ovens glow when you heat them up. He studied cavity radiation, developed the term black body radiation, developed the term black body, started developing the theory of energy quanta. Einstein, following up on his work, formulated the theory of energy quanta to a higher degree, the theory of the photon, the theory of relativity, So when people talk about quantum is black, the connotation of that is what we're going to get into forever and ever, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, so that's the preface to the preface to the Road from Orion. Check me out. Check it out. Thanks for listening. Comment, like, subscribe. Talk to your boy, etc. Peace.